11,000 kilometers. No photos, no video calls, just a voice in his head and a message on his screen. Jihoon Choi just broke his golden rule. He stepped off a plane in Lagos for a shadow. The message said, "I'm waiting," but as he walked toward the exit, his instincts, the same ones that kept him alive in Korea, screamed at him to turn back. Then came the text that changed everything. "Don't be scared when you see me." Jihoon stopped in his line of work. People don't ask for mercy unless they've already done something unforgivable. He was prepared for a lie. He was prepared for an ambush. But he was never prepared for this. Jihoon Choi was not a man people approached twice. Not because he shouted, not because he threatened, but because of how quiet he was. Still, controlled, watching everything. In Korea, his name carried weight. Not the kind you heard on the news. The kind people whispered. Some called him a businessman. Others, something else. But those who truly understood his world knew one thing. Jihoon didn't forgive mistakes. And he didn't trust easily. In fact, he didn't trust at all. Until her. It started 6 months ago. Late at night. No reason. No plan. Just a random message. "Do you ever feel tired of pretending you're okay?" Jihoon almost ignored it. Actually, he should have. Unknown number. Unknown country. No profile picture. Nothing. But something about that message felt different. It wasn't begging. It wasn't fake. It was honest. So he replied. Short, direct. "Who is this?" The answer came quickly. "Someone who doesn't know you, but understands you." Jihoon frowned. That didn't make sense. But he didn't block her. And that was the first thing that changed everything. Her name was Nia. That's all she gave him. No surname. No details. No location. Just, "Call me Nia." At first, it was simple. Short conversations. Random thoughts. Nothing deep. But slowly, it changed. Because Nia didn't talk like everyone else. She didn't ask about his money. She didn't ask about his work. She asked things no one ever asked him. When was the last time you felt peace? Do you sleep well? Do you regret anything? Jihoon didn't answer those questions at first. He avoided them, changed topics, kept things controlled. But Nia didn't push. She waited, and somehow that made it worse. Because for the first time, he wanted to answer. Weeks passed, then months, and something strange happened. Jihoon started replying faster, staying online longer, reading her messages twice, sometimes 3 times. Not because they were complicated, but because they were real, too real, and that made him uncomfortable. Because men like Jihoon don't get comfortable. They stay guarded. They stay sharp. But Nia, she slipped past all of that, without trying, without force, without even knowing. But here was the thing. There was one rule between them. One rule Nia never broke. No photos. Not of him. Not of her. No calls. No video. Just words. And Jihoon accepted it, which was strange. Because in his world, information was power. And he had none about her. Nothing. Still, he stayed. Because for the first time, he felt something unfamiliar. Calm. But Nia had a habit. A small one. Easy to ignore. At first, she avoided certain questions. Not all. Just some. When he asked where she lived, she changed the topic. When he asked what she did, she laughed it off. When he asked to hear her voice, she said, "I'm not ready yet." Jihoon noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. But he didn't push. Because he told himself, she'll explain later. And that was his mistake. 3 nights ago, something changed. Nia's messages became shorter, slower, different. No jokes, no questions, just simple replies. Cold, distant. Jihoon noticed immediately. What's wrong? No response. Minutes passed. Then, "I need to see you." He froze, because that was new, unexpected. And for a moment, he didn't reply. Not because he didn't want to, but because something about it felt urgent. Too urgent. Then another message came. "Please come to Lagos." Lagos? Africa? Jihoon stared at the screen, because now things didn't add up. She never mentioned her location, not once, and suddenly she was asking him to travel across the world? It didn't make sense. It wasn't logical. It wasn't safe. But still, he asked one question. Why? This time, the reply didn't come quickly. Minutes passed. Then, because I don't have time. That sentence changed everything. Because in Jihoon's world, people only say that when something is wrong. Very wrong. His instincts kicked in immediately. Danger, trap, setup, all the possibilities ran through his mind. And normally, he would walk away, block the number, disappear, forget it. But this time, he didn't, because something deeper spoke, something unfamiliar, concern. So he made a decision, a rare one, a dangerous one. He booked the flight. No announcement, no explanation, just one message before boarding. I'm coming. Nia replied instantly. Thank you. Pause. Then, just don't expect too much. Jihoon frowned, because that sentence felt heavy, too heavy, like a warning, like a truth hidden inside something simple. But he ignored it, because in his mind, he had already decided, whatever this was, he would handle it. Now, standing in Lagos, phone in hand, watching that last message again. Please don't be scared when you see me. Jihoon exhaled slowly, because something deep inside him was no longer calm. It was alert, sharp, ready, and for the first time since this began, he realized something. He didn't know who Nia really was. Not her face, not her life, not her truth. And whatever she was hiding, he was about to find out. Jihoon didn't move immediately. He stood just outside the airport entrance, eyes scanning the crowd. Not obviously, not nervously, just calculating. People moved around him, drivers calling out, cars pulling in and out, voices blending into noise. Normal. Everything looked normal, but something inside him wasn't. His phone buzzed. Nia, did you arrive? He typed back, yes. A pause. Then, stay where you are. Jihoon frowned. That was new. He didn't like instructions, especially from someone he had never seen. Still, he waited, because this wasn't about control anymore. It was about answers. Minutes passed. 5, then 10. No movement, no sign, no one approaching him. Jihoon's eyes narrowed slightly, because in his world, delays meant something. Either fear or planning. His phone buzzed again. I'm close. He looked up. Nothing. Just strangers, walking past him like he didn't exist. But wait, something felt off. Not around him, within him. That quiet instinct, the one that never lied, started speaking, soft at first, then louder. This wasn't right. Jihoon stepped forward, just slightly, adjusting his position, giving himself a better view. And that's when he noticed it. A car, parked across the road, engine running. Not unusual, but the driver? Too still, watching, not casually, directly. Jihoon's gaze locked for a second. Then he looked away, calm, unbothered, as if he hadn't seen anything. But inside, everything sharpened, because now, this wasn't just a meeting anymore. His phone vibrated again. Please don't leave. Jihoon's jaw tightened slightly, because that message felt different, not controlling, desperate, and that changed things, because desperation meant pressure, and pressure meant truth was close. He typed, where are you? This time, no reply. Seconds passed. Then, another message. Turn around. Jihoon didn't react immediately, didn't spin, didn't rush. He simply exhaled once, slow, controlled. Then, he turned. No one, just movement, faces, strangers, nothing that stood out. But wait, there was something, far behind, near the edge of the crowd, a figure, standing still, not walking, not distracted, watching. Jihoon's eyes locked onto it, because stillness always meant intention. The person stepped forward, slowly, carefully, not rushing, just approaching. Ji-hoon didn't move, didn't speak, didn't react, because now this was the moment, closer, step by step. And then he noticed something strange. The figure wasn't walking normally. There was a slight imbalance, a pause between steps. Subtle, but real. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed slightly, because that didn't match anything he expected. His phone buzzed again. That's me. Ji-hoon didn't look down. He already knew, because now the figure was close enough, and for the first time, he could see clearly. It was a woman, thin, smaller than he imagined, wrapped in simple clothes. No makeup, no presence, nothing like the voice he had built in his mind. But that wasn't the shocking part. Not yet, because as she stepped closer, he saw it, her hand, slightly shaking, not from fear, from weakness. And suddenly, everything slowed, because now something was wrong. "Nia," he said quietly. The woman stopped, just a few steps away. She didn't smile, didn't speak immediately. She just looked at him, and in her eyes, there was something heavy, something tired, something final. "Yes," she said softly. Ji-hoon didn't respond, because his mind was trying to catch up. This was not what he expected, not even close. And for a moment, he said nothing. Nia shifted slightly, as if standing there was already too much. "I told you," she said gently. "Don't expect too much." Ji-hoon's gaze stayed on her, sharp, focused, but now uncertain, because this wasn't fear. This wasn't a trap. This wasn't danger. This was something else. Something he didn't understand. But wait, it got worse, because as she took another step, her body faltered, just slightly, almost unnoticeable. But Ji-hoon saw it. Of course he did. And that's when it hit him. This wasn't just who she was. This was something happening to her. "What's wrong with you?" he asked. Direct, no emotion in his tone, but his eyes said everything. Nia hesitated, just for a second. Then she smiled. "Weak, faint. I was hoping," she whispered, "you wouldn't ask that yet." Ji-hoon's chest tightened slightly, not visibly, not obviously, but internally, something shifted, because now the situation wasn't unclear anymore. It was unfolding, fast, and whatever she was hiding was bigger than he thought. Nia looked at him again, carefully, as if memorizing his face. "I didn't think you would come," she said. Ji-hoon replied instantly. "You said you didn't have time." Silence, heavy. Then she nodded, slow. "Yes," she said, and that wasn't a joke. Ji-hoon's eyes hardened slightly, because that sentence confirmed everything. This wasn't random. This wasn't emotional. This was real, and it was serious. But before he could ask anything else, Nia spoke again, soft, careful. "You shouldn't have come." Ji-hoon frowned, because now nothing made sense. "You asked me to," he said. She nodded again. "I know." Pause. Then, "That was my mistake." Ji-hoon's mind sharpened instantly, because those words changed the direction of everything. Mistake? What mistake? Why bring him here? Just to say that? And then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He looked down. One message. Short, cold. "You're already too late." Ji-hoon's expression didn't change, but inside, everything locked into place. Because now, this wasn't just about her anymore. Something else was happening. Something bigger. And whatever it was had already started. He lifted his eyes back to Nia. But this time, he wasn't just looking at her. He was reading the situation. And for the first time, he realized something dangerous. He didn't come here to meet her. He walked into something. Nia saw it in his eyes. That shift, that awareness. And her face changed. Slightly. Pain, regret, fear, all at once. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Ji-hoon didn't respond, because now he understood one thing clearly. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. That was the moment everything started falling apart. Ji-hoon didn't speak. Not immediately, because now every second mattered, and every movement had meaning. He stepped closer to Nia, slow, controlled, not aggressive, but intentional, because now he needed the truth. Explain, he said. One word. Flat. Direct. Nia swallowed slightly. Her eyes dropped for a moment, then lifted again. But this time, there was hesitation. Not before. Never before. I didn't lie to you, she said. Quickly, almost offensively. Ji-hoon didn't react, because that wasn't what he asked. You hid something, he replied. Still calm. Still unreadable. And that made it worse. Nia nodded, slowly. Yes. Pause. I did. Silence. Then she added, because I didn't think you would stay if you knew. Ji-hoon's gaze didn't move, didn't soften, didn't shift, because now he was listening carefully, and Nia knew it. There's something you need to understand, she said, her voice lower now, weaker, but steady. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed slightly, because that sentence opened more questions than answers. Then how was it supposed to happen? He asked. Nia hesitated. Again, longer this time. And that was the problem. Because hesitation meant there was more, much more. I was supposed to tell you slowly, she said. Not like this. Ji-hoon took a small step closer, closing the space, increasing the pressure. Tell me what? Nia opened her mouth, then stopped, and for a moment, nothing came out. Just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable. And then she said it. I'm sick. Ji-hoon didn't react. Not outwardly, but internally, something shifted again. Because now, this was different. This wasn't deception. This wasn't manipulation. This was reality. How sick? He asked. Nia looked away briefly, then back at him. And this time, there was no hiding it. No cure, she said softly. Silence. Longer this time. Because that changed everything. Ji-hoon's mind moved fast, faster than emotion, connecting things. Her messages, her delays, her distance. It all made sense now. But wait, that wasn't the full truth. Not yet, because something still didn't add up. And Ji-hoon felt it immediately. You brought me here for that? He asked. Nia shook her head. Quickly. No. Pause. That's not why. Ji-hoon's eyes sharpened, because now we're getting closer. Then why? He asked. Nia's lips parted slightly, her breath unsteady now, because this was the part she feared. I needed to see you, she said. Before she stopped, didn't finish, didn't need to. Ji-hoon stared at her, because that sentence carried weight, final weight. But still, something was missing, something important, and he knew it. You could have told me that without bringing me here, he said. Nia nodded slowly. Yes. Pause. But there's something else. Ji-hoon didn't speak, didn't interrupt, because now, this was it. Nia looked around briefly, as if checking something, then back at him, and her voice dropped, almost a whisper. They're watching. Ji-hoon didn't react outwardly, but internally, everything snapped into focus. Because now, everything connected. The message, the car, the unknown number. This wasn't just her situation. Who? He asked quietly. Nia hesitated again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was guilt. I didn't know at first, she said, but when I realized, her voice broke slightly. It was too late. Ji-hoon's eyes hardened, because now, this wasn't emotional anymore. This was strategic. You brought them to me, he said. Not a question, a statement. Nia's silence confirmed it. And in that moment, everything shifted. Because now, Ji-hoon understood something clearly. He didn't just come to meet someone. He was brought here. But why? And by who? Nia stepped closer, just slightly, her voice barely audible now. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she said, but I had no choice. Ji-hoon stared at her, because that sentence changed everything again. No choice? What does that mean? And then she said the one thing that made everything worse. They said you would come. Silence, because now this wasn't coincidence. This was planned. But that wasn't even the worst part. Everything was still there, but now nothing felt ordinary anymore. You told them about me, he said calmly. Not angry, not loud, just precise. Nia shook her head quickly. No, not like that. Ji-hoon's gaze sharpened, because not like that always means yes. How? He asked. Nia hesitated, then spoke. I didn't know who they were at first, she said. They reached out online like you did. Ji-hoon didn't interrupt. They asked about you, she continued. Not directly, just small things. The way you think, the way you respond. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened slightly, because now this was profiling. They were studying me, he said. Nia nodded. Yes. Silence. Then they knew I would come. Nia's eyes dropped. Yes. That was it. No confusion anymore. No guessing. This was a setup. But wait. Something still didn't sit right. If this was a trap, why wasn't anything happening yet? Ji-hoon's instincts sharpened again. Because delay meant timing. And timing meant something was about to happen. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Stay where you are. Ji-hoon didn't even blink. Another message followed. You move, she pays first. His eyes shifted slowly to Nia, and for the first time, there was emotion there. Not fear, not panic. Calculation mixed with something deeper, because now she wasn't just involved. She was leverage. Nia saw the change in his face. What is it? She asked softly. Ji-hoon didn't answer, because answering would make it real. Instead, he stepped slightly closer to her. Subtle, controlled, protective, and that confused her. You should go, she said quickly. Please, just leave. Ji-hoon looked at her, directly. You think they'll let me? He asked. Nia froze, because now she understood. This wasn't something he could walk away from. Not anymore. His phone buzzed again. Look to your left. Ji-hoon didn't turn immediately. He waited. 2 seconds. 3. Then he turned. Slow. Measured. Across the road. The car door opened. One man stepped out. Not rushing. Not hiding. Just standing there. Watching. Then another door opened. Second man. Same calm energy. Same stillness. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed. Because now the pressure was visible. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Nia's breathing changed. Faster now. They're here, she whispered. Ji-hoon didn't respond, because he already knew. But wait, it got worse, because his phone buzzed again. You came for her? Pause. Another message. Now choose. Ji-hoon's expression didn't change, but inside, everything shifted. Choose? Between what? And then the final message came. Her life or your loyalty? Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Nia's voice trembled. What are they saying? Ji-hoon looked at her, and for a brief moment, the ruthless man disappeared. Just slightly. They're giving me a choice, he said. Nia's eyes widened. What choice? Ji-hoon held her gaze, then said it. You or something else. Nia stepped back slightly. Fear. Real fear. No, she whispered. No, that's not. But she stopped, because deep down, she knew this was her fault. Ji-hoon's fault. Everyone's. And now, someone else was in control. The men across the road didn't move. They didn't need to, because the situation was already locked. Ji-hoon exhaled slowly, because now, this wasn't about a rival anymore. This was about consequence. And whatever came next would change everything. What happened next, no one was prepared for. The noise around them faded, not because it stopped, but because Ji-hoon no longer heard it. Everything narrowed down to one thing. The choice. His phone remained in his hand. The message still glowing. Her life or your loyalty. Nia's voice shook. Ji-hoon, what does that mean? He didn't answer immediately, because now this wasn't simple anymore. This wasn't just about danger. This was personal, deeply personal, and that made it worse. They want something from me, he said finally. Nia's brows tightened. What? Ji-hoon's eyes darkened slightly. Information, he said. Silence, because that word carried weight in his world. Information wasn't just power. It was everything. Why you? She asked. Ji-hoon didn't respond right away, because the answer was obvious. They know who I am, he said. Nia's face changed. Confusion, then realization, then fear. I didn't tell them that, she said quickly. Ji-hoon nodded once. I know. And he meant it, because this level of planning didn't come from her. This was bigger, smarter, colder. But they used me, she whispered. Ji-hoon didn't correct her, because that was the truth. And now they were both inside it. His phone buzzed again. Time is running. Ji-hoon looked up. The men were still there, still watching, still waiting. No pressure, no rush, because they knew time was already doing the work. Nia's breathing became uneven. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking now. I didn't know it would turn into this. Ji-hoon looked at her, really looked this time, not as a situation, not as a risk, as a person. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. The weakness in her body, the tiredness in her eyes, the truth in her voice. Everything she didn't say before was visible now. You said you didn't have time, he said quietly. Nia nodded, tears forming now. I don't, she whispered. Silence. Then she added, that's why I wanted to see you. Ji-hoon's chest tightened, because now the emotional weight hit. Not fully, but enough. You shouldn't have come, she said again. Ji-hoon shook his head slightly. You asked me to. Nia looked at him, and in that moment, everything between them became real. Not messages, not distance, reality. But this is my fault, she said. Ji-hoon didn't argue, because blame didn't matter anymore. Only outcome. His phone buzzed again. Final message. Last chance. Ji-hoon stared at it, because now there was no delay left. No later. No second option. And suddenly, something from earlier came back. Clear, sharp, unavoidable. Just don't expect too much. He understood it now. She wasn't warning him about her. She was warning him about this moment. Ji-hoon looked at Nia again, and this time he made a decision. Not rushed, not emotional, intentional. He stepped forward, closing the space completely. Nia's eyes widened slightly. What are you doing? She whispered. Ji-hoon didn't look away. They're waiting for an answer, he said. Her voice shook. Then give them what they want. Just go. Ji-hoon shook his head. No. Simple. Final. Nia's breath caught. Why? She asked. And that question changed everything. Because Ji-hoon paused, just for a second, then answered, because you asked me to come. Silence. Deep. Heavy. And in that moment, everything shifted. Not the situation. Not the danger. Him. The ruthless man. The feared name. The one who trusted no one. Chose. Not power. Not control. A person. Nia's tears fell freely now, because she understood what he was giving up, what he was risking, what this meant. And then Ji-hoon picked up his phone, typed one message, stopped, looked at her one last time. Then he sent it. And in that moment, everything changed forever. The message was sent. No hesitation. No second thought. And just like that, everything went quiet. Not around them, but inside Ji-hoon. Because the moment he made that choice, something in him settled. Across the road, one of the men checked his phone. A pause, then a small nod. No smile, no reaction, just confirmation. The second man stepped back into the car. The first followed. Doors closed. Engines started. And just like that, they were gone. No noise, no confrontation, no final words, as if they were never there. Nia stared, confused, shaken. They're leaving, she whispered. Ji-hoon didn't respond, because he already knew what that meant. The choice had been accepted. But wait, something felt different. Not relief, not victory. Something heavier. Because choices like that don't end things. They begin something else. Nia turned back to him, her eyes searching his face. "What did you send?" she asked. Ji-hoon looked at her, calm. "Still, I gave them what they wanted." Silence, because that answer carried weight. "What does that mean?" she asked softly. Ji-hoon held her gaze for a moment, then said it. "It means I can't go back." Nia's breath caught, because now she understood the cost. Not fully, but enough. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice trembling. Ji-hoon didn't argue, didn't defend himself, because this wasn't about right or wrong. It was done. A light breeze passed. The noise of the city slowly returned. Cars, voices, movement. Life continued. But for them, everything had changed. Nia took a small step closer, her body weaker now, more fragile. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. Ji-hoon replied immediately, "I know enough." Nia shook her head. "No, you don't." Pause. Then, "There's something I didn't tell you." Ji-hoon didn't react, because at this point, nothing surprised him anymore. "What is it?" he asked. Nia looked down, her hands trembling slightly, then back up at him. And this time, there was no hesitation left. "They didn't just find you because of me," she said. Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed slightly, because that changed the direction again. "What do you mean?" he asked. Nia swallowed. "They were already watching you," she said. Silence. Then, "I was just the way in." Ji-hoon didn't move, didn't speak, because now the final piece dropped. This wasn't her mistake alone. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was planned long before her. "They knew about you, your network, everything," Nia continued. "I didn't understand it at first. I thought they were just asking questions." Her voice cracked slightly. "But when I realized—" Pause. It was too late. Ji-hoon exhaled slowly, because now everything made sense. Why they were calm, why they didn't rush, why they let him choose. Because this was never about forcing him. It was about guiding him. And he walked into it, willingly. But strangely, he didn't regret it, not even now. Nia looked at him again, her eyes softer now. "Different. You gave up everything for me," she said. Ji-hoon shook his head slightly. "No." Pause. Then, "I chose something." Silence settled between them. Not heavy this time. Not painful. Real. Nia let out a slow breath, because for the first time, she wasn't hiding anything. No secrets. No delays. No later. "I don't have much time," she said quietly. Ji-hoon nodded once. "I know." Another pause. Then she asked, "So what happens now?" Ji-hoon looked ahead, not at the road, not at the crowd, but forward, as if seeing something beyond this moment. "We deal with what comes next," he said. Simple, clear, no fear. Nia smiled faintly, because that answer wasn't what she expected. It was stronger. She stepped closer, slow, careful, and for a brief moment, she leaned slightly toward him, not fully, just enough. Ji-hoon didn't move away, didn't step back, because now there was nothing left to calculate, only truth. And in that quiet moment, no power, no fear, no control, just two people. The city moved around them, unaware, unchanged, but for Ji-hoon, everything was different, because for the first time, he made a decision not based on power, but on something real. And that changed him. But the lesson stayed. Sometimes, it's not the danger that changes your life. It's the choice you make when there's no time left. Ji-hoon came to Africa expecting answers, but what he found was something he never planned for. Not control, not power, connection. And the shocking truth? Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who choose to lose everything for something that actually matters. So tell me, what would you have done in his place?